Welcome to Practicing with Integrity, highlighting the pioneering spirit of modern dentistry with a comprehensive view of the techniques and technologies at the forefront of dental science.
Welcome to episode 1 of Practicing with Integrity. My name is Daniel Galindo. I am a prosthodontist and I am the Chief Clinical Officer of Integrity Dental Services. Our first guest today is Mr. Rob Dinker, founder and CEO of Integrity Dental Services. Thanks for being here, Rob.
Dr. Galindo, it's a true pleasure. Really looking forward to, especially on your inaugural episode of your podcast. I know you'll have some great information and hopefully some great questions for me so we can deliver some great content to all the listeners.
I'm thankful for you being here. Let's get to it.
Absolutely.
So you founded Integrity Dental Services in September of 2019
Correct.
in Atlanta, Georgia, a few months before the global shutdown coming from the pandemic. Now you currently have the headquarters of Integrity Dental Services in Duluth, Georgia, north of Atlanta, the Technology and Milling Center in LaGrange, Georgia, south of Atlanta, and the 3D Center and Education Center in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is impressive in such a short period of time. Before we get into the how and the why of why you decided to start Integrity Dental Services, let's talk about where you came from in terms of your affiliation with dentistry. Tell me about how you became attached to dentistry.
Absolutely. I knew right out of the gates I had to start with the reminder of the pandemic. That was a very trying time and testament to God that we're still here and the growth we've had. But yeah, so growing up, my grandfather on my mom's side started a dental laboratory, Lloyd Dental Lab, in 1953, actually in Athens, Alabama, and then moved that laboratory, what is now very popular here in Nashville in a suburb called Brentwood. So as a young rugrat, I was always running around after school or daycare, playing in the lab. And back then, everything was analog, so it was fun things to be made. Probably the funnest thing I found were either putting latex gloves on the air gun and blowing up, watching the hand explode, or taking like a dye for a coping and dipping it into a wax pot and making a wax coping. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then obviously when my grandfather wasn't looking and my uncle worked in the laboratory, he started when he was 18. So it's sort of dental technician's pedigree is like I said, in our pedigree. I dipped my finger in there as a defiant little kid and play around. But the good Lord bless me. I say with two left hands, I really can't make things. My limitations stop at probably screwing in a light bulb. And I always found business very interesting and especially finance. So I went to the University of Georgia, Terry College of Business. And when I graduated, I really was looking at commercial real estate and the risk management side of things. There's a very interesting opportunity with a company in Lawrenceville, Georgia, sort of where I grew up as a startup, and knowing them in the lab space, just keeping connections I've had and some other friends in the lab space and through my mom and the family members. I thought, this is a really interesting opportunity to come into the lab segment, because one case study I did in school was about private equity. And I started reading and seeing private equity was getting in the dental space, primarily in the DSO space on the clinical side, but also a company called National Dentex, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with, and seeing private equity buying these labs and have consolidation and sort of a roll up and becoming a large national footprint. And private equity was very interesting to me. I thought, well, if these guys are willing, and they're some of the sharpest guys in the room, if they're willing to spend their money and their investors' money in this space, I need to look more into this. And so I took a job at a company in Lawrenceville and worked my way up the ranks. It was a 6-person company at the time, doing maybe 90 to 100,000 a month in revenue. I came in and did some account managing, then quickly was vice president of operations, grew a sales team, and wore a lot of hats at a company that size. We grew to about 50 employees. And when I left there, we were doing maybe 1.5 million a month in revenue. But I learned a lot of things in technology. I learned a lot of what to do, what not to do. Saw a lot of changing in that space. So that was sort of the introduction. And I don't want to go on too much in detail of that, but that was sort of the introduction of me really gaining traction and saying, hey, I gauged the temperature. I thought I'll give it 2 years. I'm still young. this isn't for me, then I'll go in a more traditional space. But that was sort of the evolution of me coming in the dental space. And then fast forward in 2019, I branched out on my own with a leap of faith and started Integrity.
So I find it real interesting what you mentioned before. Your first contact with the lab industry was analog. You were playing with dyes, you were, dipping them in wax and creating some
Oh, yeah.
copings, and look at where we are right now. And we'll be talking about that shortly. Why Integrity? Why Integrity Dental Services? Why did you pick such a name as powerful as what Integrity is to name your company?
Yeah, so that's a question I've been asked often. It's a cool story behind it. I sat down and you start putting a short list together. You want to have a name that's powerful, meaningful. A lot of people have gone traditional route, last name Dental Lab or something like Elite Dental Lab. There's some really cool names out there. People have come up with really unique names and based around the industry. You've got companies like Oral Arts and Glidewell, named after Jim Glidewell, two different examples. But so I was making the list. Then I made another list sort of to check boxes of what's the meaning behind the name. And I was sitting there indirectly talking to some family members of previous job I had and just how frustrated I was on things and how the way we did things sort of lacked integrity and how I wanted my new company to not, before I get to the name, not just to be a dental lab, but I saw where the industry was going and that labs had to evolve with 3D printing, with milling, with intraoral scanners, the use of technology, customer service, in-house marketing. All of these things to me were true business. I come from a business background. I'm not a laboratory tech. I can speak the lingo, but I wanted to grow a business, something that we could scale at a multi-site location and also scale and have a long runway in front of us, not just be a laboratory, which not knocking labs at all. They serve a great purpose and they're the foundation of our industry. But I wanted to have a company, and that's when I came up with, I'll say, blank dental services. I couldn't figure out the first part. So I knew I wanted dental services because we were a multifaceted company and I wanted to not limit ourselves to they're just a dental lab. Like today we sell some hardware. We're a distributor for 3D printers. We offer just design services. We have marketing in-house, all these just different things. So I knew, okay, the first part, it's like Wheel of Fortune. Okay. I know it's dental services. And then indirectly, when I was talking about where I came from, I just have to make sure the new company, we have good values. We have integrity. Someone looked at me and like, there's your name, Rob. I said, what are you talking about? You want the company to have integrity. Everything, the core values that you're talking about that your new company has to have is integrity. And that's how Integrity Dental Services were born. I knew that no matter whatever I develop, whatever I build, I had to stand on, and the people that we hired and the culture and the pedigree, first and foremost, integrity was at the forefront. And so I know it's a strong name. And one beautiful thing about the name Integrity, every day we wake up and we look in the mirror and we strap our boots or lace our shoes to go to work, we know that we have to represent integrity. And it's been a great reality check and a gut punch to myself and the whole team to represent, because that's a hell of a name to represent.
It's a huge name. It's a huge name. And those that are involved with integrity just carry it with a lot of pride. So thank you for sharing that story. So you got the baby, you created the company. What principles did you follow to start recruiting people? You're starting from scratch. So how are you creating team? How are you selecting those people that are going to carry your vision through to create what integrity is right now?
Yeah, I grew up watching the San Antonio Spurs as a basketball team, and I really saw the way they led that team with senior leadership. They may not have had some of the most athletic people still on the roster, but they had veteran leadership that always, as they would bring in young kids and through the draft, I really was like, when I run a business one day, whether I work at a company or own a company, we need that senior and veteran leadership. So I started with some key pillars from the lab industry, people I knew that had integrity, had core values at the heart. And I knew that if we're going to scale this thing like I believe in, and I'm going to bet my money on, and bring in young people because of the advances in technology and learning digital, and obviously the limitations we had from a financial startup. We're not private equity backed. We're privately owned. I was funding this out of my pocket and the growth of the company. So that had limitations on who we could hire. But knowing those people, I wanted young generations that were willing to follow the pillars of integrity, having loyalty, having honesty, having integrity. And so when we were recruiting and interviewing people, it wasn't just who's the most skilled. That's very important. But some of the prima donnas and divas that we interviewed were the most talented people in the room, but their ego couldn't fit the room. And so it was, how did we find that mix to make sure that we didn't create a toxic culture, that we could have a culture like a team where that's one reason I love the Spurs. Tim Duncan, the most talented player on the team, the coach could ride and in front of the whole team, could be as hard on as the rookie draft pick, and he took it with no ego at all. And I always tell people, if you're coming to work at Integrity, you leave the ego at the door. We do what's best for Integrity, do what's best for the team, and everything else falls in line and you'll be taken care of. So that's fast forward today with having around 230 employees in the network of Integrity. We've still tried to follow that and never break the mold on. If you don't have the core values of what the company believes in, I don't care how skilled you are or how much talent you bring to the table, you're not for us. You know, if you have that backbone and the pillars of what we need, everything else will follow. And we've done a great job with that. One thing I'm more proud of than anything is the attrition rate at Integrity. Still to this day, we've only ever had 2 people quit the company. I mean, we've had some senior people that we've hired that we knew the time would come, they were retired, and they've retired with Integrity. But on the 5-year mark, we've only ever had 2 people leave the company. So I think that's something we should be very proud of. And it's a testament to the people that work there too, the culture that show that, hey, this is a career. This is a path for me. And it shows that there's a way to be promoted up the ranks. And when you show employees a path forward, that's contagious, and that helps control their attitude. And attitude is one of the main reasons when we look at hiring people and do an aptitude test, and understanding that your attitude can make or break a company. If you take a barrel of apples, the old saying, you got the best apples, but you throw one rotten apple and you come back 3 days later, they're all rotten. You don't want a toxic person in your work environment.
Yeah, John Maxwell, on his book, 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader, talks about the law of magnetism. And whether you intentionally apply that or unintentionally, it clearly shows through. You brought the people that will reflect the principles that you wanted to bring into Integrity. And that's remarkable.
And I think one thing to finish that note, it starts with myself too. Stressful days, the growth pains we go through, financial burdens, downturns in the economy. I have to hold myself accountable too. I can't come in and wear my emotions on my sleeve and show to the team that maybe I'm having a bad day. I didn't sleep that night. There's a lot of things going on that I've still got to come in positive and lead by example. And we can't let external factors in our personal life affect what's going to happen at the company, because more than likely we spend more time with the employees and our work colleagues than we do at our own home with our own families. So if we're not coming in at the top leading by example, it's hard to hold others accountable. And I think that's one key trait to any good leader is leading by example.
Absolutely. I want to touch on something very important that you mentioned, retaining your team.
Correct.
It's remarkable that you have been able to keep the people that you have hired. What do you do to put people first and to make them feel so happy where they are?
I wish I could say it's some magic potion we run through the air vents, but really, you spend a lot of money hiring your employees. You spend a lot of money training your employees. So you have to retain your employees. And a lot of the companies, especially in the dental laboratory and dental service space, I've looked at, the turnover rate just eats them alive. It cannibalizes you. And so if you're not aware and you don't have a culture where people want to stay and work, and people start coming in for interview, and it's like, well, you're the 4th person to have this job in the last year. You're the 4th person to be a VP of operations in 2 years. It's not real enticing for them wanting to take the job, even if you want to hire them. And it costs the company a lot of money. And our customers believe, and they build relationships. I always say one of the main pillars to Integrity is built on the relationships. It's one of the pinnacles of what we are. Well, if they're not getting a familiar face and they're talking to people over and over, and there's such a high turnover rate, it's not only detrimental internal, the external factors. So what we've really done is we've really wanted to put a path forward when we hire someone to say, hey, we love to promote within. If you come to work at Integrity, say you're an entry-level position in scanning, then you can move forward to maybe an entry-level 1 designer, level 2 designer, level 3, possible department manager. And it's not just BS. We're not just giving that person lip service when we hire them. they see it and they hear it from their other employees, and they live that life. They see in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever the case is, they're getting promotions, they're building a career. We don't micromanage. We expect the most and we drive excellence and we expect excellence. But at the same time, too, we don't have our thumb in everyone's head. We give you enough rope, I say, to hang yourself. It's important. And the thing, too, in our space, there's so much lab consolidation. It indirectly, people, when they come to work at Integrity, it's not like there's a ton of other options just to leave and go. And I'm not saying that's the only reason they stay, but it tells me we have to do something so we don't fall victim to be another number of a lab closure and what's going on in the space that's changing rapidly. So we try to make sure, and doing quarterly performance reviews and talking to employees, employee luncheons, we listen. A lot of times, great leadership, people think it's telling what to do and pointing the finger. Sometimes you got to use the 2 ears that God gave you. You know, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We listen to those departments. We listen to the people within the department. What can we change? What do you like? What are you not happy about? And then we make sure to tweak those things. So, you know, it's a constant learning curve for us. It's a title. It's a great testament to the management team and executive team of putting leaders in charge to make sure the day-to-day operations happen and people stay happy.
So just with what you said, of course, people have a path forward. It's defined, it's motivating, it provides an incentive to growing, to doing your job right, to moving into the next step of a career. You talked about communication as well, which I think is incredibly important. You have a very diverse team. There's executive leadership, there's department heads, there's people that are working next to the handpiece units, you milling the zirconia. Tell me about communication. What is critical in communication when you're trying to compile this diverse population of employees that you have?
Yeah, at Integrity, there's a lot of different moving parts. I mean, if you look at the company as a machine, it'd be one of the most complex machines in our industry because we're still running full analog workflows, which require this types of department heads and these types of employees. Then digital, then you have what we call digital, which is the overlap of the two departments. And then we have finance, we have HR, we have operations, we've got clinical, we have education. So I mean, the circles that overlap, and it's making sure that each department is pulling their weight. It's making sure that the overlap that happens is not like a detrimental bleed into. We want each department to almost have a halo effect over the other department, meaning by that a positive effect. So it's something that we're constantly working with the operations team and doing weekly, monthly, quarterly SWOT analysis internally of each department, and then a SWOT analysis of on the macro level of the whole company, and making sure any weaknesses we see that are trends between one department isn't a constant reoccurrence in multiple departments. So we have to keep our finger and our thumb on the pulse constantly, because if you wait too long, it can just run out of hand. And especially with the hyper growth we've had, the amount of C-suites we're bringing in, the hats I'm taking off, and empowering more people to run departments, you know, bringing in a new chief sales officer, having a chief clinical officer, we have a CFO, CMO, all these different departments, and the people that roll up under them, we have to make sure that they're running parallel with each other. So it's I'm not going to say it's easy, but the best measure we found and the best way to stay the course is keeping your finger on it daily and making sure nothing ever gets out of control. You know, if you wait too long, or you're waiting for metrics and you do quarterly reporting, so much can happen within 90 days. And then it's just out of control. Someone's mad, they've left, this department's upset. There's animosity between the two departments. But if you're talking with them on a daily or weekly basis, you have morning huddles. Our new COO, Todd Reed's done a great job of really instilling the morning huddle aspect and understanding a huddle within each department, but then also a morning huddle with each department head. So everyone's on the same page. Some of the most detrimental things I've seen where I worked before, where I call sweetheart deals behind the scenes, where you would tell one department one thing and then they go cut a deal with another department. And then the two department heads were like, well, that's not what I was told. Well, yeah, he told me I could do this anyway. And then no one's buying in and they don't believe in the leadership. People get pissed off and things go awry. And when the department head's mad, it bleeds down to their employees, and it's just a snowball effect. So the best way for us is just keeping our finger on the temperature daily and making sure we listen to those in the department. They're in the trenches every day and they know their department better than anyone else.
That's very important, and I appreciate you sharing that information with us. Let's touch back on something that you mentioned a moment ago. Relationships. Relationships are super important, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to put my face mask, my gloves. I'm going to be practicing in my office.
Okay.
I've been working with integrity since February of 2020. Um, and one of the things that struck me as impressive, as something that I had not dealt with before, was the way I could talk to you and I could talk to your team as a dentist that's sending you cases and that might have questions about some of the cases that I'm sending you. Tell me about that. Tell me how you were able to kind of assemble that puzzle and making sure the puzzle stays together and doesn't come apart when you develop that relationship with the dental office.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a firm believer, not just in our industry, but any job I've had in the past or any successful people that have mentored me or I've talked to. Relationships are a key pinnacle to what you do, and especially in the dental service, dental laboratory industry, when digital's taking over and pricing is becoming so important, and so many people, let's say, can mill a full contour crown for the same price. Libraries are becoming digital, so things are becoming more and more automated. Well, if 10 different labs can all sell you a crown at the same price, what are you going to do to set yourself apart? You can do it faster. Okay, that's one option. But to me, the one I really wanted to focus on as a competitive advantage was the relationship. I believe people will pay a little bit more and they'll stick with you, especially during tough times, if you build that relationship. And I did a really good job of asking some key accounts and key opinion leaders in our industry of not only everything they liked about certain large labs and large vendors out there, but things they didn't like. And one of the big things I always heard were going through a phone tree, never be able to get the same person back on the phone, really never having that true relationship that they could talk to. And so that was one of the main things. And I've always been someone who likes to go all in on relationship when I get to know someone, whether it's at work, outside of work. I want to get to know you. I want you to get to know me. You can text me on your son's birthday. I'll text you on your kid's birthday. Whatever the case may be, we trust each other. And where I came from previously, there was not a whole lot of trust between the doctor and the technicians for a magnitude of reasons. And I'm not here to go down that rabbit hole, but it was a learning curve for me to understand that relationship is very important. And when we're dealing with a doctor who's bringing a treatment or a path of hope to a patient who's spending their hard-earned money to, let's say, you, for example, you're a prosthodontist, you're as good as anyone I know at doing full mouth rehabilitation. Patients come in and write a check to you. They're entrusting you to restore their smile, their confidence. The lab's a big component of that. Well, if I'm just full of BS and you can't trust me as a person or know me on the individual level, how are you ever going to trust me in business? So if we can show you and build that relationship that, hey, we are integrity, we have integrity, we stand behind our work. The people you talk to don't just come and go. They're here to stay. So we're not going to run from it. If a problem happens, problems that happen every week. I can't stand people that sit here and act like they're perfect and they never have issues within their company or with a case. The volume we do and the scale we're at, things happen. I mean, yeah, if you look at it broken down, it's a very small percentage. The remake percentage or internal issues is minute and it's incredible, but you still have issues. And if you don't have that relationship and you don't have that trust when those issues arise, you're never going to make it.
Correct. I think trust is paramount in developing that relationship and knowing that we're both covering our backs. The practices, the dental lab, the dental services company is covering each other's back because ultimately there's only one person that should be winning out of this, and it's the patient that is receiving the treatment. So now we're talking about technology because you were talking about designers. We're moving from the analog world to the digital world, and now we're scanning or we're taking photogrammetry and we're looking at designing cases. How do you maintain that flow of communication when now it's all going through a computer? What are the principles that you've used for that?
Yeah, you just have to segment it out like anything you do. You have to take the whole and then you have to segment it. And you break down each segment and understand that throughout that process, basically, where's your stopping point? When an email's sent, Okay, that's a buffer. That's a touch point. That's why I like to tell everyone we have to look at the labor touch points. And anytime we have a labor touch point along the way, whether it's bringing in a scan, reviewing a micron mapper, a scan to merge, or just a simple quality control of, let's say, an intraoral scan for a pre-surgical case, whatever the case may be, you have that labor touch point. It's a good point or a part along the way to say, hey, this is a good point for communication. So we have what we call like our digital air traffic control team that are bringing in all the iOS files and different types of files that could be coming in, CBCT or photogrammetry files, and reviewing them. If they see something that's challenging or it could be a problem, we're stopping and we're reaching out to the office. Whereas before, they may be looking at a traditional impression and they're like, man, there's a pull in this impression or there's a void, they would call. Now we have to retrain the system and say, okay, we're looking at it on the computer. We have to teach them and educate them what to look for. You stop the process, you reach out communication. A lot of times now in the past when phone calls would be warranted, we're sending messages. A lot of docs like text because they can check them in between operatory. And the nice thing about a text or an email, you can put a picture with it. If you pick up the phone and call, they're not having that visual, that tangible item to look at. So it's really nice now to send a quick text message for support or an email with a picture of what's going on, of where we see a potential hurdle to overcome, and letting them know. So it just, the best way, like I said, you just take the whole process and then just segment it in sections of where you could see things go wrong. And when you see an area of where something could go wrong, it's a great time to fill a buffer with a personal touch or communication.
And the way you set it up, you've got teams that are dedicated according to offices, so that you can have continuity
Oh
of
yeah,
conversation.
and
they're
been
all in
huge.
the same building.
Yeah, so
Tell me about that.
that's one thing we've done, especially for some of these larger DSOs. We've always said, hey, we want the proactive, not the reactive approach. So we've got people internally that are constantly reviewing, tracking numbers from FedEx, tracking numbers from UPS to make sure something's not delayed. If a script comes in that's missing information, if we see that there's a manufacturing issue that happened internal, we have softwares that we've built that trigger mechanisms that will send messages in-house to the correct customer service or customer success rep. So then they'll reach out to the office so we can get in front of it. Let's say a case is due on the 10th. And on the 7th, we notice that, hey, something's warped, or for whatever reason, something went awry. Instead of just waiting till the end, we're wanting to get in front of it. Maybe we look and say, hey, we have enough days left on the prescription or the RX the doctor asked for. We're going to be able to meet the treatment restorative time, no issue. Or, hey, guys, it's going to be cutting it close. Instead of waiting till the day of the case is due and the patient's coming in, they've already scheduled daycare or taken off work, we want to go ahead and call the office so the office manager can reach out to the patient and say, hey, Miss Smith, I know you're supposed to come in Wednesday, but we're not going to have your case. We're going to have to push you back to Friday. It's important to have all those pieces in-house that are talking with the technicians that are manufacturing, so they don't stop manufacturing. We don't stop production. We don't want them to get on the phone and reach out to the office, but we want messages sent internally so that the customer service and customer success team can get out in front of it and really offer that touch point. And that goes back to the relationship, knowing that we have their back because we're a representation of you to your patient. If we're not delivering on time, then you're not delivering on time and you're not delivering to your patient. So it really has a domino effect.
So a lot of what you are talking about and what I'm listening, I recently read a book by Liz Weissman, Multipliers, a New York Times bestseller, that talks about two different types of leaders: the leaders that drain and kill ideas, and on the other hand, the leaders that develop people. And the title of her book, Multipliers, kind of allows you to understand that if you have the right talent in the different divisions, you can double, you can triple your workforce without actually having to spend the money to double or triple the workforce. It seems you've done that directly or indirectly with all the different divisions that you have, of course, with the talent that you've acquired with the department heads, but it seems it carries on through. Tell me about how you develop that leadership muscle.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't have a choice. We have to be that lean and have that leadership muscle because of the cost point that the market's calling for. We're selling it. We have to be as lean as possible. And to give that service, we don't have the luxury of just overhiring, overstaffing. The labor piece on our P&L will make or break your month, your year. And so we have to make sure we have leaders that are there to empower. You see people that in the past, a lot of management leadership, they never wanted the people above them to ever outshine them. They were always, you could have someone working under them, could have the best idea ever, and it could really make an impact and change things to a large magnitude. But that manager never wanted to be outshined. They want to walk around with their coffee mug and listen and point the finger. Now we have people that are constantly embracing it because they know the better the company does, the better everyone's going to do, whether it's the success and longevity of integrity, it's their actual monetary pay. So it's been very important and really cool to take our skilled labor, like you're talking about, our leadership, and parlay that with the advances in technology like AI and some of these softwares we're using. And it's just been unbelievable, the ROI we've seen and how much work we're able to get done with less labor than you would ever dream of, but more efficient than ever. So by having good leadership and leadership that's open to listen and embrace those around them to help make them better, but those around them help make the leader better. So as their department's growing, they're indirectly growing. And then, like I said, utilizing that through some of the softwares we develop, communication channels to be super efficient, to cut out touch points that are a waste of time. It's been a great path forward.
So you've shared with us how you've created Integrity Dental Services and how you've positioned it to be a leader in the market within a very short period of time, a little bit over 4 years. You're an entrepreneur. How do you look at other businesses? How do you consider other businesses that might be completely different industries? Do you apply the same principles? Do they carry through if somebody's listening and they're not necessarily in the dental field? What are those key points that you would carry into other industries if you were to be involved? And you're involved with other industries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to start the conversation out, our new chief operating officer just came from the automotive space, and the principles and understanding operations for what we do at Integrity were very similar to what they're using at Hendricks Automotive Group, which is the largest private automotive group in the U.S. And Todd, who came over from there after interviewing and talking with him, getting to know, that really even opened the door for me and my eyes more to understand that, hey, just because we're in dental, someone's in automotive, maybe they're in the medical space overall, there's so many synergies. And it starts with the key things we've talked about: strong leadership, knowing where you're going. And one I think that gets here lately has been overlooked a lot by companies is culture. And culture, to me, if you don't have culture, you don't have a company. And you may have a company today, but it's not something that, if you're ever looking to exit or scale or to be relevant in 5 or 10 years, the culture is everything. And if you don't really, if you're listening today and you're not in the dental space, one thing I would tell you to take away is go back and really sit back and take a cup of coffee or sit down and digest, what is the culture of my company? Where are we today? Where are we going in a year? Where are we going in 3 years? Are the key people that are with me today, do I see them being leaders of the future? Are they being contagious to those around them? Are they shedding our culture? And do people within your company ask them questions? What do you think of the culture of the company? And that's, to me, I just can't stress it enough. If you don't have culture, you don't have a company. And that's been very telling to me, looking at some companies outside of our industry that have been super successful, that have gone through hyper growth, that have scaled and remained profitable, and have kept their employees. They all had good culture. And in talking with their C-suite and their executives, they maintain that culture and they put a price tag on that culture more than anything. And really understanding that without your people, you're nothing. We're not sitting here with just robots, and we're not a one-person company. We can have the best product, we can have the best machines, but if we don't have people to run the machines, if we don't have people to talk to the clients, we're nothing. And all of that, at the end of the day, it's culture. And so as we look forward, if maybe we go through acquisitions, acquiring other labs, and you're wanting to look at, 1 + 1 is 3, 1 + 1 is 5, as far as a value, if a company you're acquiring, they could be as profitable as ever and they have great EBITDA, but if they don't have culture, I don't want them. So, I mean, that to me is just everything.
Yeah, culture is a key difference maker within a company. So you were talking about how important it is to getting to know the people that you work with and the relationships. And we've created a great relationship, not only working, but personal. We've gotten to
Absolutely.
know each other. We know our families. Uh, we've shared a lot of experiences together. And one of the things that I've seen in you is your incredible big heart. You've got the Dinker Foundation. Let's talk about that, because the work that you do there is remarkable and something that I know you're very proud of. You help a lot of people, but I want to hear from you. What motivated you? What's the goal? What have you done?
Yeah, the Dinger Foundation to me is the pride and joy of my life. I mean, integrity pays the bills, integrity provides a lot of jobs. But, if we look at where we are as a country now and what's going on, and you look at these politicians, and to take politics aside, I don't care, Republican, Democrat, none of that matters. But everyone wants to run on a 2-year or 4-year issue that can be fixed. The main issues that we need to be fixed start at the home level with with children, and especially children that are growing up as a single parent or one parent's in jail, and they're not born with the same opportunities with guidance and leadership, and they really struggle. And then what happens to those kids? They get attracted to gangs, to violence. They go down the wrong path. And so one thing I told myself along the way, because I've seen a lot of people that have overcome those hurdles, but a lot of people too, they never had the same opportunity. And it's not just someone writing you a check and saying, here's money, go to school. It's teaching you right from wrong. It's understanding a path forward, where we're going. And I always tell people, like, I think one of the biggest fears that politicians have is seeing us all come together as one. Like, and in a sense, in a way, they want the division, because it's like, we're gonna sit here and run to help this group of people, and this side's gonna run to help that group. And I always told myself, if I make it and I'm able to financially give back, I don't want to just write checks. I want to actually write a check and get in the trenches and help these people and get involved. Same way you run a business and you run a SWOT analysis and you figure out what's going on and what's right with the company, what are the strengths, the weakness, opportunities, threats. Let's look at it from a socioeconomic standpoint. What can we do to help these people? A lot of these kids we've helped, and when we do our annual back to school drive every year, and we're giving out school supplies, we have pizza and all these fun things. That's great. Anyone can do that. But when you finally sit down with the family and understand that, hey, this kid's dad passed away when he was younger, this kid's dad's in prison, and he's never had the leadership. I donate my time. I go to the Boys and Girls Club, and I've become a big brother to these people to help give them guidance and to help give them a path forward, and understand that just because they don't have a father in their life, they don't have a mother in their life, that doesn't mean we can't help fill that void. And I feel like people are so quick to say, oh, it's just charity work. Here, how much money do you need? The Dinker Foundation's never taken one penny of outside funding. I tell people anyone can be involved, but you have to give your time. And I've said this before in another podcast. Denzel Washington one day said something that's just stuck with me for life. He says the most selfish thing any of us can ever do is help someone, because the rewarding feeling it gives, and just being able to make a change and an impact in that person's life. What the seeds we're planting today, we're not going to see huge leaps and bounds in a year from now, 2 years, 4 years from now. But I believe in the Dinker Foundation that the stuff we've done over the last 4 and 5 years, it is going to echo in eternity. I can't tell you how many people we've helped go down the employment path that have in the past sold drugs on the side or relied on government assistance, and now they're working, they're paying taxes, they're paying rent, they're going down a path of self-fulfillment and self-independence, and they're helping guide the others, and they have young kids. Well, what's going to happen? That path forward that kept the father out of jail, kept him out of prison, and put them on a path for success. Now their kids are going to grow up the right way. And that's the type of snowball effect we want to have. That, like I said, as a politician running, it's not a good policy for them, because they're not going to get reelected, because you're not going to see the ROI in their 4-year term. But that's the BS I can't stand. I think where the political system's wrong is stop running on and trying to throw all this money at stuff just on policies to get you reelected. If we really want to help this country, and we really want to see our kids and our kids have an impact, let's start today on doing stuff and building a foundation for the future. And that's the foundation of what the Dinker Foundation's built on. And you can tell I get emotional about it, because I'm serious. Like, it drives me nuts to see all these people that make a few $100,000 a year, and they're like, oh, I just wrote a check for $2,000 to the Boys and Girls Club. They've never stepped foot in there. They've never done anything. Save your money. You're not doing anything. Get out there and tie your shoes and go help. Throw the ball with a kid, read a book with them, go listen to them, and talk to them and be involved, or teach your kid how to give a hand. Bullying in school, things that are real, kids that only get one pair of shoes for the whole school year and kids laugh and pick on them. We can stop that stuff tomorrow. It starts at home. Guidance and understanding right from wrong. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that this country faces is kids are growing up without the leadership of a parent, and they're just not learning what's right from wrong. And it's very easy to be pulled on the right path. So it's much money the Dinker Foundation's raised and been able to give back on building playgrounds and all these different types of things. More importantly, I can't tell you how proud I am of the employees and the people within Integrity and the Dinker Foundation and outside people that have come to help, that come and lend a hand, or they show up at one of our events. And I never ask them to come back to the next one. We have the next event. And it's like, my God, where'd all these people come from? They're like, I wouldn't miss it for anything. And you talk to them. It's not that they can't write a check or give money. They're like, I'd much rather be here and help. And that's the type of stuff we're looking at when I see an employee from Integrity holding a kid's hand, walking him to the playground, pushing him on a swing, having a popsicle with them, and just talking and seeing the kid laugh. Some of these kids, they don't realize the world is like, they are born with such an uphill battle compared to most, and they have no idea. And they're happier than some of the kids you see that parents provide everything to them. So it's just, like I said, it's starting indirectly a foundation that's building a foundation for the future of what's to come.
That is remarkable. You're a class act, and thanks for sharing this, because I know that it's something that makes you very proud, makes your family very proud, makes the people that are around you very proud, and incredible. Let's as we're wrapping up, what's the future of Integrity Dental Services?
The $1 million question. I think the future, I mean, it's very bright, obviously, with partnering with someone just like yourself, the caliber of who you are, and bringing in that level, that peppering in that pedigree of clinical knowledge. And when I first was talking to you and you were telling me, hey, I'm ready to step back from doing clinical. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, what route I'm going to go down, if it's education or just practice less at my own private practice, or maybe semi-retire, whatever route you were going to go. And then my wheels started turning. I'm like, he's been a great friend for a long time. He's been a great customer and colleague, and the education he has, it's like, if he's already planning on stepping down from being chairside, what would the future look like for an Integrity or a dental service company of bringing in a partner to run education, not only for our customers outside, but for educating our employees? Because one issue this industry faces, all lab owners listening, I'm sure your ears will perk when I say this. Where are we getting technicians from? To my knowledge, there's less than 4 dental laboratory schools left in the US. It's a dying breed. Work's coming back shoreside. Outsourced labs are dying overseas because of COVID and the use of technology. Doctors are wanting stuff made in America. So I think the leg up Integrity has that propels our future forward, one massive tailwind behind us, is you. And I know it's been a great opportunity sitting here and you to ask me all these questions, and I love answering them. But for a minute, I'm going to hold the mirror up and let it look back at you and say the future is bright because of people like you, and what we're able to do to educate and really train our technicians, not only from a technical dental laboratory standpoint, but what does the other side of the coin look like? And that side of the coin is the clinician. What is the expectation of the clinician? And so when we're able to pepper in the education of you, and then Dr. Jediah Woolrich working with you, who's as sharp as anyone I've ever seen when it comes to digital workflows and understanding prosthodontics knowledge, and you teaching about the biology and everything you've accomplished, the team you have is one huge area that's going to propel us forward. And then obviously key hires we've had, our new chief sales officer with Shane Treadaway coming in to help build a sales team, not only to go out and sell, but to sell to quality accounts and sell them that we provide value to it. So I think the future is very bright. The number of dentists and practitioners is growing exponentially, and we're having suppression on the lab level. So to me, as a business person, I'll make that bet all day. But we can't get complacent. We can't get compliant. We have to keep adapting, and we have to keep adopting new workflows. We can't take tomorrow for granted. There's a lot of roll-ups going on. The economy is not super strong right now. I mean, we're in an election year. We'll see what happens. I think this economy is fool's gold right now. It's propped up on a lot of money that's been injected to it. So it's a great time to hold dry powder and really be strategic in your investments and your hires. It's one thing we've done at Integrity. I think we've tried to sit back and aim and make sure we're steady before we shoot instead of shooting then aim. So I think it's bright because of the investments we've made and in partnerships with people like you. And I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you. This has been an amazing talk. In this first episode of Practicing with Integrity with Mr. Rob Dinker, the founder and CEO of Integrity Dental Services, we learned about how a company that started from the ground up with solid leadership and practicing principles became a disruptor of the industry, selecting key leaders, having an honest approach to business, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. So, Rob, I want to thank you for being my first guest, taking the time out of your busy schedule and sharing with our listeners what integrity is and what integrity means.
Yeah, it's a true honor to be here. And like I said again, thank you for allowing me to be here, especially on your first episode of the podcast. I know that you had numerous people you could choose from, so it's a true honor. And maybe this time next year we could come back and film another episode and touch on the things we talked about and see what the future looks like, and look back in the mirror and what we've overcome and what the obstacles have overcome.
That would be incredible. I'm going to pencil it in. Listeners, you can go to phoenixbusinessradiox.com to listen to the show live. They can also search our podcast, Practicing with Integrity, on the Business Radio X network and major platforms like Spotify, Apple, iHeart, and Spreaker. Feel free to share with your family, friends, and colleagues. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Practicing with Integrity. Stay tuned as we navigate the fascinating landscape of oral health, where integrity meets innovation.